Hello everyone. Let's discuss today's The Hindu editorial page. The first article is Acknowledge India's Economic Successes Too. In this article, the writer says that the Indian economy has experienced impressive growth in the post-COVID-19 years, with a year-wide growth rate of 7.2% in FY 2023, making it the fastest among major economies. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, projects India's YOY growth at 6.3% in FY 2024, making it the third largest by 2027. However, the term fastest is not based on its small size, as India is currently the fifth largest in the world in US dollar terms and is projected to become the third largest by 2027. The rapid growth of the Indian economy cannot be attributed to weak domestic demand, especially when external demand growth has been uneven and uncertain. Some commentators argue that post-COVID-19, EOY growth rates need to be replaced by compound annual growth rates estimated on the pre-COVID-19 year of 2019 to 20. This view seeks to measure annualized progress as if there was no pandemic. However, the fact is that there was a pandemic, and EOY growth rates measure progress despite the pandemic. Present-day economic dividends are also rooted in the steps taken to mitigate the economic challenges of the pre-COVID-19 period. In the first decade of this century, the Indian economy grew rapidly, driven by strong growth in world trade and a domestic credit boom. However, the global financial crisis of 2007-08 led to a decline in global trade stimulus, leading to a surge in non-performing assets of public sector banks. High leverage in the corporate sector led to frequent defaults in repayments and a surge in non-performing assets of public sector banks. The twin stresses on balance sheets combined with elevated real estate prices led to a lower investment rate in the Indian economy. Public capex could not add much to the investment rate as the new government had no choice but to opt for fiscal discipline to address the legacy challenges of large fiscal deficits, high inflation, and a widening current account deficit. With trade and domestic investment weakening, the Indian economy grew at a rate less than its potential in the second decade, except for a couple of years when crude oil prices dropped, improved the trade balance, and supported higher growth. The new government implemented a series of measures to lift the Indian economy onto a higher growth path in the medium term. A calibrated liberalization of the economy has resulted in an upward level shift of net foreign direct investment flows. The Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, IBC, introduced in 2015 successfully addressed debt and lowered non-performing assets in the banking sector, setting the stage for private corporate investment to take off. The demonetization drive of 2016 reduced black money by 5%, and the country is projected to become the third largest by 2027. The next article is Justice, Anger, and the Nithari Acquittals. In this article, the writer says that the bones of 19 children and women were found in Nithari, Noida in 2006, and it was decided well before the trials that the two men, Surendra Cooley and Munida Singh Pandar, were guilty of these crimes. However, the terms of justice seem to be severely contested in light of the acquittals for Cooley and Pandar. The legal journey began in December 2006 when human bones were found in the Nala, outside Koti number D5 in Nithari, where Kotari resided with his employer, Pandar. This led to a lurid tale of abuse, murder and cannibalism that Kotoli confessed to a magistrate after spending almost 60 days in the custody of the Central Bureau of Investigation, CBI. The CBI registered 16 cases for 16 murders. In the first case, the Sessions Court relied on the confession and the discovery of human remains outside D5 to convict and sentence Kotoli to death in February 2009. The Allahabad High Court and the Supreme Court of India, also relying on Kotoli's confession, confirmed this death sentence. The case progressed to the level of the President of India rejecting Kotoli's mercy petition, only for the High Court to find that it would be constitutionally untenable to execute him. The remaining 12 cases had Kotoli's confession as the mainstay of the prosecution's case. Yet the Allahabad High Court has now acquitted Kotoli, despite the same evidence having been used right up to the Supreme Court in the first case. The High Court has highlighted that Kotoli's lawyers were able to get investigators to admit to legally significant flaws in these cases, which were not available in the first case, where Kotoli, an illiterate and poor man, had been reliant on a different lawyer. The High Court concluded that the investigation was deeply flawed, and both the police and the CBI had failed to investigate a neighbor to D5, a surgeon who had been interrogated earlier for organ trafficking. Unlike courts before it, the High Court gave due consideration to the report of a high-level committee set up by the central government to look into the Nitari murders that had recommended an inquiry into organ trafficking. The court also noted that evidence of substantially better quality had been put forth in these cases to establish that the confession had been procured through torture and tutoring. The next article is a menstrual hygiene policy should provide a range of services. In this article, the writer says that the Supreme Court of India has given the Centre 4 weeks to finalize an optimal menstrual hygiene policy, focusing on the distribution of sanitary napkins. Chief Justice D.Y. Chandrachud directed the government to set a national model for the number of girls' toilets per female population across government-aided and residential schools in India. Menstruation is the reality for women of a particular age demographic, involving a substantial percentage of half the population in the country. Over 3/4 of a century after independence, India has come close to even drawing up a menstrual hygiene policy. As per the latest National Family Health Survey, NFHS, 73% of rural and 90% of urban women use a hygienic method of menstrual protection, a significant improvement in the percentage of women aged 15-24 who use a hygienic method during their menstrual cycle was observed. The survey also revealed the close link between education and preference for hygiene, with women who have received 12 or more years of schooling being more than twice as likely to use a hygienic method compared to those without schooling. To complete the circle, it is crucial that the government ensures access to affordable menstrual hygiene products for all menstruating girls, clean toilets, and water wherever they may need them. The policy should also cater to the entire life cycle of menstruation, providing for the entire range of health and social sequelae that result from it. Chip off the block. As incentives for semiconductors sputter, course corrections are due. In this article, the writer says that the Union government's production-linked incentives, PLI, for manufacturing semiconductors is underutilized by up to 80%. To achieve its goals, the government must be clearer on what it has achieved and aim to accomplish by continuing to spend crores of rupees on bringing more semiconductor fabrication capabilities to India. The PLI scheme for IT hardware has a R17,000 crore budget, while the one for semiconductors and displays has Rs38,601 crore. On employment and substantial value addition, existing schemes show little promise. Chips are important for most hardware and applications, but manufacturing facilities employ few people for the value generated in sales. Not all big-ticket spending in the national interest translate into domestic employment, as evidenced by import-heavy defense spending. The central wage with these schemes lies in attracting an ecosystem that will increase the value addition of India's electronics manufacturing sector. This is far from a guaranteed outcome, even if PLI benefits are optimally availed. The consolidation of PLI schemes remains a wage, and it must be bolstered by other efforts to strengthen India's hand, such as encouraging semiconductor design talent to develop domestically. However, the bulk of the capital remains focused on the assembly and subsidizing of large manufacturing plants, with much raw and intermediate material still being imported. These outlays must be pegged to a tangible outcome, such as safeguarding cybersecurity, encouraging domestic electronics industry to make electronics cheaper for Indian consumers, or asserting India as a global electronics manufacturing center. Clarity on desired outcomes would make failures easier to spot and allow for correct course correction before massive PLI spending has already taken place.